Welcome, everyone. And this is, I think, episode 3 of Check Out My Project. And maybe it's number 4. In any case, we've got Evelyn Wallace, whose project I keep hearing about, and I can't wait to hear more about what is going on. So before we hear about the project, can we hear a bit about you, Evelyn? Because everyone's got their own unique situation, and you have a unique situation that you're in. People tell me all the time, I can't do it because of this, I can't do it because of that. And it helps for them to know, you're not just doing it out of the blue, you've got challenges. What's your situation with respect to acting sustainability and starting a project and leadership and things like that?
Like, what's my life context?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I live in rural Eastern Oregon, like small town. I have 3 kids who I co-parent with their dads, had 2 batches of children, so dads plural. Um, I um, I did all the same things I think that most of us do at first, which is believing myself to like already be one of the good guys. And that I thought like Josh was barking up the wrong tree in inviting me into the sustainability leadership world. And because this work comes at sustainability from like kind of the side door, I see it. It's like it doesn't sort of hit you straight on. It comes in, well, side door, but like really through the inside door. I would say that like all of the like the contextual excuses, like, oh, I have kids, or oh, I have to drive because, or oh, this is the way life is. Those kind of faded out because I was introduced to sustainability through like my own the things I loved. It started with like biking my son to daycare once a week as a challenge, as a personal challenge. And then it just helped, like, then I started looking at all of my life choices, like day-to-day choices with a different lens. So I don't know if that answered the question as far as like the context of my life and how sustainability and leadership fits into it, but
I think so, because a lot of people have, I mean, everyone's situation is unique. And that means that, but there's also a lot of overlap. And I think the more that people sense this is someone who's had an experience like mine, or even if it's not like theirs, if they understand the particulars, I think that helps them. The route to the general is through the specific. And now you said barking up the wrong tree, that I invited you in, but I feel like, yeah, I guess there was at the beginning, was it hard for you to start doing this? Because you didn't come to me for sustainability. You came to me for leadership. And did I drag you in? Did you come in?
kinda, Josh. Don't ask if you don't want the answer. You did kind of drag me in, but I needed some credits for graduate school, and I figured, fine, I'll just learn some stuff I already know, or I'll pretend to learn some stuff I already know, because I was so humble. So it did. You phrased the offering in a way that like was kind of hard to argue with, like it was hard to say like, well, no, that stuff's not important to me. But I think I took a leap of faith because I happened to be in a position where like I needed to fill up some hours. I needed some credit. And so like I was willing to put in the time, but what came out of it was game changing, life changing. And a surprise to me, probably more than anyone else. And that's part of why I do this with my life now.
All right. Now, okay, let's jump to, sorry to everyone, we're going to skip over a lot of middle stuff. Now you're doing a project that is, I mean, you're really diving into stuff. Every time I hear stuff, I'm like, that, I didn't expect that. I think you're like, I didn't expect that. Can you sum it up, or can you describe the process? What's the best way you know the best way to describe it? What's your project?
My project is a nonprofit called Circle Game Inc. You can visit our website. It's circle-game.org. We just got our 501c3 as of, it's retroactively approved. So as of
Yay.
St. Patrick's Day, we are like St. Patrick's Day will be our nonprofit birthday from here on out. So I figure, what luck, luck of the Irish. Yeah, it's a nonprofit. really from like the launch pad was the Spodek Academy and everything I learned there, and both about leadership and about sustainability and about my own calling and my own voice. And so the project now is this nonprofit that essentially, for the time being, has 3 branches of programming. The first branch is in-person retreats that will be run out of my house in rural Eastern Oregon, monthly weekend retreats, so only once a month. They'll be run, 6 participant limitation per cohort per weekend. That will be like I will teach you to be sustainable weekend, but without having to hit people over the head with it. Obviously not physically and definitely not metaphorically, more like showing instead of telling the joys of living ever more sustainably. Also, just like side note within that, it's not going to be the kind of retreat that like people, you can't fly in from Sweden. You can't fly, like how you get there is going to be part of the application process. And fun fact, those are going to be free, sort of like Vipassana retreats, at no cost to the participants. So if that's the kind of accessibility that you as a listener at home want to support, then feel free to donate tax deductibly to our nonprofit. Hello to the newcomers of the group. Glad to see you guys here. Okay, so that's branch number 1 of the programming. Any questions about that? Should I pause for a minute?
Yeah, because well, you could keep going. I'll just throw this out that I'm curious about. It's like you're putting together something, you're describing something that's put together. And I think that, did you know, how long did it take you to figure that out? Because I think, you had to, you didn't start with the big picture. I mean, I think how did it come to be? Because now it's pretty well put together. I mean, forming a 501c3 is not simple. I mean, maybe the second or third time someone does it, but it's like, it seemed like a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, I just finished grad school. If there's one thing I know how to do, it's jump through hoops. So that part was actually, for me, kind of surprisingly simple. I mean, there's like money, you have to have like piles of hundreds of dollars lying around. But for the most part, if you are doing work, I think, at least in my experience of the 501c3 application, if you're doing work that is for the good, for the like public good, it seems like to me a no-brainer. Like, why doesn't every small business incorporate as a nonprofit and not pay taxes? And then you can like people can give you money tax deductibly on their end. But like, where did it start? Like the in-person retreats really came out of almost like a lifelong dream, but like an unspoken dream where I knew the power of residential life, of like being together morning, noon, and night, sleeping, eating together, not sleeping in an inappropriate way, okay, friends, but like, being together 24 hours a day, essentially. And in my mind, somehow it was like this very like future thing that was happening like in this big property up on the mountain. And I was actually encouraged by a coach the question was, okay, Evelyn, have you ever had one of those jobs where on Sunday night, work is coming Monday morning and like you have that thing, that pit in your stomach, like thing that is just resistance. You just do not want Monday morning to come. I was like, yeah, I've had that job. Who hasn't? She goes, okay, what's the opposite of that for you? What job would you make for yourself if like, not only is Monday exciting, but like, you don't want to wait until Monday morning to jump into it? And so that's when I started thinking like, well, I've been doing this that's at that point I was still with Spodek Academy. I was still doing primarily online courses and offerings, which is its own beautiful thing. But I realized that as I kind of dreamed about what it was that I would do, there was a lot more in-person stuff. So that one branch of that, the answer to that question was like residential. I would have like a grown-up summer camp to like teach whatever stuff and to be together, to teach whatever stuff I wanted to teach, I guess. But the other branch of it is like, well, I would also be on my bike as often as possible, using the bike to spread the good word of living more sustainably. And so those dreams started weaving together around like, well, if I did want to run like a residential program, I don't have a big piece of property. I don't have the money to have a big piece of property yet. I do have this pretty big house here in Eastern Oregon that I had been renting out just to tenants, like monthly, annual, month to month, essentially, tenants, they could always stay as long. I mean, in any case, yeah, there were long-term tenants there. So when I recognized that, like, I actually had the resources to start to put together a residential program, that's when like the dream really got big. Just a heads up, daycare disappeared for the end of the summer. So the last few weeks before kindergarten starts, my son is here with me. I probably should have warned everybody ahead of time. So you might hear my little fellow in the back.
And I think that helps answer some of the question before of like your situation. Everyone who works with Evelyn knows she's a mom and the kids pop up, and yes, that's part of the joy of Evelyn.
Right. Well, yeah, welcome. Yeah, what am I going to do? Like not join into the Zoom call? So yeah, so I guess back to like the residential program, like started as sort of this question, this posing, and like there was something, you know, we all know, I think, in our own lives when something just feels like clicked in, like click 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 click. So for me, as soon as I realized, oh, I don't have to buy a big property, I have this big house, it was like click 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 click. And I saw the vision of my house being run in this way where like all I have to do is live my life and show people what I've been doing, and I can organize it in a way that's not like you have to do this too, but like this is what it can look like, and this is how much fun you can have, and this is what unplugged game night feels like, and this is what body movement feels like without looking at a screen. This is what togetherness feels like. This is what walking to the by the pound store looks like, and bringing your own bags. This is what cooking veggie hash looks like. So there's definitely a lot of hoops I will still have to jump through to get all of that approved. There's like a lot of there's like a lot of city, county, like Oregon health authority permits, and just, you know, red tape essentially that I'll have to work through. But so far I am optimistic that by next summer, by the summer of 2026, the weekend retreats will be up and running, and that people will be like come home buzzing from them, like telling their friends what a great time they had, and organizing like their own group of half a dozen people to come like carpool together to get there. I see like waiting lists, you know, I see it as like, well, now we have to expand at some point, but not there yet. So I'll just solve the problems in front of me at the time.
So I think I hear a pattern, and tell me if I got this right, that at the beginning you started doing things that were available that you didn't create, but you're like, all right, I got to do something. And that was the teaching online and helping create other things. And if I'm not mistaken, only by doing that, even though that wasn't perfect for you, there were things that you couldn't have known would connect until you started acting in some way. And then that revealed, wait a minute, this is what here's all these things that I can do that, and things around me that work for me, that work for this. And there's this passion inside me that has been waiting for a chance. And this is it. Something like that you couldn't have gotten there had you not done something, even though that first thing wasn't the perfect thing.
Yeah, I mean, wherever we find ourselves, I think it's the right place at the right time. And then when the time ends or when things change, then we find ourselves in a new place, and that's the right place at the right time. We know in our hearts if something's off and we're not in the right place. So I feel very much like I was in the right place at the right time. When I applied for graduate school, I was like, well, if I learn some cool stuff from the books, that's like a bonus. But really what I'm looking for is to connect with the people I know I need to connect with. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what they would be doing. In my mind, I was like, I bet I'm gonna get into like the Daily Show or something. Like I'm gonna be the social worker who like finds a way to do the research for the Daily Show. So I figured that I would do something so unconventional, something that like people are like, what? That a social worker can do that? So I kind of walked in with just blind faith that graduate school would lead me to meet the right people, which it did. And that the work, at the Spodek Academy taught me what that variety of online programming looks like, and taught me what people say about it, or like what, you know, like what I would change if I could. And then when I realized, it doesn't have to compromise what Spodek Academy is offering if I also offer this other thing. That's where it really felt like it resonated because I guess to answer the very first question, like the second branch of programming for Circle Game is an online course. So what that is kind of taking everything I learned and helped design with the online courses that you run, Josh, and tweaking them based on like my instincts, based on feedback, based on like this new sort of organizational culture, a different organizational culture at Circle Game. So that, yeah, like I wouldn't have known to do that until I had done this, or I wouldn't have known to do this until I had done that. And I think that's ultimately how life works always, if we're open to it or doing it right.
Yeah, I think that mindset, you have a mindset that anyone could have. And to say, I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not right. Oh, well." And you actually, maybe that's a question
What's
for you
not
is,
right? What do you mean?
a lot of people feel like there's nothing I can do, or I don't, the way you say it, wherever you are is the right place at the right time. I
Okay.
forget exactly how you said it. Some people feel like, "Oh, woe is me. I can't do anything. I'm stuck."
Yeah. And I have felt stuck before. I mean, I'm not like exempt from that emotion, but I think as far as like, I guess I choose to see every turn in my life path as getting me to where I needed to be at the time. So like even all the weirdo stuff I did, like, basically wandering the world with like this giant sugar skull that was like my plus one for a while. All
Uh,
of that work was important, necessary work to get me where I am now. And it was important at the time. It wasn't just important as a vehicle to carry me, it because I carried it, but it was important as its own experience. In fact, I often think how grateful I am to have the practice of like pushing so visibly against like the social rules of like this is how we act, because carrying around a giant sugar skull, like this huge sculpture, it was, it's like this big when you carry it. It's not like a normal thing. It's not like, a common comment I would get was like, wow, you don't see that every day. But often people would smile, laugh, make a joke like, think ahead, or funny things. Often people would ask me, did you make that? Or where'd you get that? And then every so often people would ask, like, what's the story? What are you doing? And I learned to say, well, it takes about 30 seconds to answer that question. Do you have 30 seconds? And if people didn't, then I'm not going to hold you hostage. But it happened enough that like I engaged with people in a way that was so meaningful, or that people would then share with me their experience, a near-death experience in their own lives, or someone they loved just dying out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere. That it felt like, okay, this weirdo thing that I'm doing, I'm carrying around this giant sugar skull, that was the necessary work. I never could have guessed that that would help prepare me for doing other work that also maybe less flamboyantly, but very much like pushes against what the world tells you is like the right way to do it.
so that by doing things, it makes things, and I mean, this resonates with me that there's all these things that I did in my past of learning science, learning business, that, oh, now it all fits together. But I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't have said that ahead of time. It like once I started doing stuff, then the things fell in. Like, oh, this thing that I'm good at, I can use that. And it feels like that's like the doing makes it happen.
Right. Bingo.
So now I'd asked you to describe it, and then I took a step back to talk about the ramping up and how it came to be. Can you talk more about the project? And I'm thinking now, like next summer, if someone does this, what's their experience? Like, how do they hear about it? How do they sign up? What happens when they're there, if you know? And another big thing is that I've seen pictures of how you're transforming your space, the
Mm-hmm.
land, and growing things. And that feels like a big part of it. So I wonder if you could take on those two things.
Yeah. So like how do people find it? I mean, at this point, it's wild. Like just calling it a retreat. It like people lean in. Like a retreat is awesome. People want to go to retreats because they're relaxing and energizing and lovely. So the more I talk about it now, just even with my friends, the more I think that by the time it launches, there's going to be a waiting list. There's going to be people who are
All
chomping
right.
to get in. Yeah, that's how I envision it anyway. Who knows? And then, we do have our website that at some point it will be finalized enough that I'll like know how to do like search engine optimization stuff, so that when people are just like searching online, especially from this part of the world, they'll be able to find it. Let's see, the preparation, or like, I guess I can speak to the land use. It's kind of great having a reason to get your property up to snuff. Like there's been a lot of, I'll do that later tasks in my big house that I,
Hmm.
kind of miraculously bought from my ex-husband. 1 year I was like, okay, I'm like a single woman and I'm in this house alone. It's a steep learning curve how to take care. It was built in 1900, gorgeous old house. So a lot of projects, I'm like, that's a later project. I'll deal with that later. And the backyard was one of those projects. But this summer, the more I recognize, like thinking ahead, the more I realized, like this has got to be ready. This has got to be ready to go by next summer. That also actually came from a neighbor meeting, because in some of those like city county permissions I need to be granted,
Hmm.
nowhere does it say like your neighbors have to be on board. But something I've learned both in leadership and just in my new experience of like learning how to work in groups, you want people to feel a sense of buy-in. You don't want people to feel surprised or attacked or like, threatened. So I had, one of the first things I did was have a neighbor breakfast party, like a meeting of the neighbors, like the neighbor properties that touched my property, or that, the people I interact with most and can see where I
Uh-huh.
live. And they came over to basically hear about the idea I had for this project. Like I could, um, is assuage the right word? I could like help mitigate some of their concerns about parking, or like, what unknown can be scary. And so I wanted to make that as easy as possible. And one of the comments I got from one of the kind of grumpy neighbors who moved away like a few weeks later, but they were like, well, we are sustainable too, because we grow our own food. And they do.
Hmm.
They have like amazing green thumbs and beautiful yard, like the, I'm covetous of their beautiful yard. But they were like, if you really want to get us behind it, like you should grow stuff in your yard. And I'm thinking, dude, well, you want to come over and help me like pickaxe the whole thing? Cause gosh, it's a lot of work. And I'm like a single woman over here. Um, I like actually started to tell them that story. I was like, well, I got this house is like out of a divorce. And they're like, well, that was a
Uh-huh.
long time ago. It's like, okay, I guess no sympathy points. And then when I could let go of my ego around it and just kind of hear what they had to say, I was like, they're right. That's a really good point. Like the backyard should be, or the backyard is another opportunity. The whole land is another opportunity to show instead of tell. This is what it looks like to live more sustainably. So it's been a really fun and difficult, like working the land. I often find myself thinking as I'm like with the Pulaski, just like digging earth. I'm like, man, forget moving heaven and earth. Earth is enough.
Uh-huh.
This is hard work. But now it's at the point where things like I've literally planted the seeds for things to be ready next year. So there's a little area, like instead of planting grass, we planted creeping thyme, which is like a more drought resistant, just more like sustainable, essentially ground cover, that still lets you have the like the beauty of just like a flat, non-muddy place to hang out in your yard. I bought a mulberry tree, or like a mulberry tree start. And I
Hmm.
feel confident that it's the only mulberry in my county. I've like never met a mulberry, and nobody I know has a mulberry or knows anybody with a mulberry tree. So I'm really excited. And apparently, I mean, I looked up the hardiness zone, so it should be okay. I'm really excited to have that as like a, yeah, selling point. And then yeah, there's like the farm side of the yard where I'm really looking forward. Oh yeah, I see like some, positive comments in the audience here. So thanks for that. Some of my conversations with my permaculture friends really informed how I designed the yard, and all my instincts. Like I kind of listened to the yard and I watched where people walked and like what natural trails would emerge. And then once I passed out those trails, then I could organize the rest of the yard around it. My property's on a very, very mild incline, and the backyard had been like overgrown for so long that incline was just kind of kaput. And so I re-established that incline so that ultimately, oh, and I found rain barrels on Craigslist. So I'm going to capture water this next summer. I'm sure I'll learn a lot about that because I have no idea how that works, but I'm going to use the natural gradient of the yard to, as my friend says, make a baby canal. So it's just been so fun to learn stuff like with my hands And to know that at some point I'm going to be able to share this forward with other people. It's just like, it kind of holds my feet to the fire of like, not a project I want to keep putting aside for a year. I don't want to invite people to a retreat and be like, oh, please ignore the backyard. It's weedy.
So it's weird because you're talking about doing extra work. You're probably developing calluses. You're probably dirt on your fingernails. You're probably traipsing dirt into the house, which you have to clean up. And yet you're smiling about the work. What's going on? What?
So funny, Josh. You're so funny. I know you're jealous because you're a Manhattan kid, but yes, working the earth is its own satisfaction. And yes, the dirt under my fingernails. There was actually been like Zoom meetings or like I've been going to church lately. I'm like, uh-oh. I better, like, people don't know this is garden. I just look kind of dirty, but in my heart, I feel clean. Also, this is a true story. It's amazing how incentivized you can be to dig the backyard when you're avoiding podcast editing, which is like the third branch of programming for the nonprofit. So it'll be the in-person retreats, the online workshops or online courses, and then a podcast, which is, I guess, the easiest entry point. You can get, everyone knows you get podcasts for free. So that we're going to use, like, my colleague Hayden Kessinger and I co-host that podcast, and it's really fun to record them. It's really fun to get guests, and it is so unfun in my experience so far to edit it that I'm like, what would I rather be doing than editing this podcast? I know I'd rather dig up a bunch of earth and like use these arms that I guess it made me realize how infrequently, other than on my bike, I like really engage my upper body. Probably should work.
Yeah, I gotta say, when you're saying the skull thing, I was like, nice guns. Someone's been working.
My friend called them Michelle Obama arms.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, thank you. I've probably quoted her like 1,000 times at this point.
And can you also talk about the, can you talk about there's your yard, but you're also connecting with the yards of people. Like you said, there's no other mulberry trees around. So I keep hearing from you, your connection to other people's trees and other people's land and what's around in the neighborhood. So you're connecting with your environment.
Sure. Yeah. And the neighbors, like the people environment, like really, and this is a social worker skill that, it seems like, why isn't this just universally taught? But the whole engagement with the community you're working with, like, you're not going to come in and be like, I have ideas about stuff, which actually is pretty much how I used to run my life. Like, I have such good ideas. And like, okay, they're not bad ideas, but like, there's also the listening component of your good idea. So, or my good idea. So engaging the neighbors and really having a sense of like, I don't think any of them are going to want to put the kibosh on this, but I want them to feel like if they want to do that, I'm not going to launch this. I'm not going to launch this if someone's like, you may not. In my heart, I felt like, well, if someone feels that way, it's probably for a reason. Like, they're probably concerned about a thing, and I can probably deal with that concern. But I guess engaging with the human environment as much as the like actual earth, I think, is just as much of a point of growth and opportunity as the rest of it.
And how about your sons? Are they digging with you? Are they like, oh, mom's doing this thing, or how's that?
Only when forced. But they're really good sports about it. And it's actually on me. Like, I was digging out, there's like this big volunteer, it's like an elm, I think, in the corner. It's been growing roots for so long, even though it's been cut down. And it's like, it wants to, every living thing wants to live. So it's not giving up easily. And it's not in a position where we can like pull it out with a chain and a car or something. Plus, it's been really fun to be primarily human powered. And so I was digging the other day, and one of my roommates who has remained, or who like kind of jumped into one of the empty rooms, was like, hey, do you have a place just for me to stay for a few months? I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm running a retreat next summer. But anyway, so I do still have roommates, but yeah, he was like looking out the window and he's like, Evelyn, you're doing a lot of like, well, I don't know if he used expletives, but he's like, you look like you're suffering out there. Like, don't you have two strapping young boys upstairs? I was like, that's a good point. Like, I forget to employ them, not employ like I'll pay you for it, but like employ, put to use, put to work. And so that night I kind of mapped out the next day with the boys. I was like, okay, tomorrow we're going to get up at this time. I'll make you like mom oatmeal, which they love somehow still. It's so cute, which all comes from bulk. Like, love it. Sustainability oatmeal. with like goji berries and like slivered almonds and yum, yum, yum.
Mm.
And then I was like, and then we're going to work in the yard. And like, I asked my son, my 16-year-old, I was like, do you know how to use an axe? He goes, Mom, yeah. I was like, okay, great. I didn't know that. Sorry. I probably still baby you. And then like, when we did it, we just put in an hour of work together. What I realized is I can just let go of like how effective they're being. If they're out here like making some movements with their own tools, then they're going to learn kind of incidentally too. I don't have to like hover over them and be like, do it this way, don't do it that way. I can certainly add tips of like, please don't hit the axe on roots if there's still dirt on the roots, like dirt and sharp, like your tool should not be hitting dirt. That's not good for the blade. But I was like I was weeding the area where the creeping time hasn't quite crept yet. It needs some time to creep. Fun fact, if you buy 60 starts, it still does, like, it takes a long time to dig 60 little holes, but then you look at the yard, you're like, that's nothing. It's like still just these tiny little things. I did not know how to get around the little containers that all of those came in, the plastic containers. So I have a bunch of like, I have 60 plastic containers that I could probably bring back to the nursery, actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, so the morning chore to be in the yard together, like it brought joy to my heart just to like hear the boys talking, their boy stuff. It was like mostly about their video games and anime stuff that they are into. But we were all outside together, and I used them for like another project. Oh, where I was biking past a construction company that was like jackhammering up an old concrete driveway to put in a new concrete driveway, and I like came to a halting, screeching stop on my bike, and I was like, "What are you doing with that old concrete?" And he was like, "Landfill." I was like, "Could you bring it to my house instead?" I was like, "Yeah,
Oh
do you live
man.
in town?" Yeah, so I basically, it's like free Amazon. It's like better than Amazon. I got local free pavers delivered right to my door. Did I mention for free? Free is my favorite number. So all I had to do was the work. And this was a few months ago. So as I was putting these pavers in to create this like beautiful sort of broken pathway, I also put my sons to work, just like the little parts. Like I had done 98% of the work. I was asking them to do like help me with the last 2%, but they ended up having such a good time. And like they made comments that made me think that they will take ownership of that pathway for the rest of their lives. Like they feel like they made that pathway happen, or they were part of making that pathway happen, which they did, or which they were. And that feels really good. That feels like a mom win.
Now, I have a whole bunch of questions, and for people who are watching this, Evelyn alluded to if the recording is going properly, then every time that I go off video, then I disappear. So there's a bunch of people here who are on video, who are off video, who may have questions. And so if they have questions, put your heads up, and then I'll call on you, and then if you can go off, put your video on, and then ask Evelyn a question. And while people come up with those, um, I could keep asking questions for a long time, but one of the next ones is you're very upbeat. Are there times when you felt like giving up? Are there times you felt like this wasn't worth it? Have you felt forlorn or?
Funny you should ask. So many times, so many times. I mean, who doesn't, right? Like, I guess maybe that's a good thing to be sure to say, because I wouldn't want my enthusiasm or my passion to be misinterpreted as like never having resistance. If anything, the brighter the light, the longer the shadow. So yeah, there has been a lot of maybe not resistance of like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this with your life, but like there has been, there's been like the doubter in my own head of like, you're like a grown-up woman and you're still not making new money, like I'm surviving. Like I've found a way to to keep a livelihood, to keep a roof over my head. Like my financial situation is stable, but I'm not like actively engaged in earning my own money. And so there's like, what's wrong with you? Like, just get a job, a normal job, which, I pretty much can immediately dismiss because I see it. I see how, profitable is probably the wrong word, but I can see how this structure of like livelihood is essentially is like is viable. It's long-term viable. I guess I should say, just as far as like any people who know a little bit about nonprofit structure, I'm the president of the board. And so technically, like, I'm not an employee. I'm not getting paid. You can't get paid. You can't be the check writer and the check receiver. That's good. That's like, that's how it should be to prevent like weird fraud.
Mhm.
But at some point that will probably shift where like I become the executive director and like someone else takes over as the chair of the board or the president of the board. This is like pretty common in nonprofits where it's like a small group of people who kind of launch it and like give themselves away for free for a while. And then like when the mechanism of the machinery that you built gets going, then you can like transition out of unpaid laborer to, paid laborer, and someone else can take the reins of like being like your boss kind of. But yeah, I would say that the resistance or the the doubt or like the days that I just want to give up are frequent, but I'm getting the more practice you get at like hearing that voice and like recognizing it for what it is, the easier it becomes to kind of dismiss it as like, yeah, thanks, thank you, next. Thank you, I got work to do.
And how about probably people who are watching this have watched the previous ones with Emily and with Beth, and are you learning from them? Are they learning from you? Is there like a community of you guys keeping in touch with each other? I mean, I know that when you, man, I remember when Beth was getting started and we were like, oh my God, she's doing these amazing dinners. And anyway, is there a community of what it's like post workshop alumni? Is there something going
Yeah.
on there? Or I mean, are you like watching? Are you inspired by her? Is she inspired by you? Are you learning from her? Are you learning from her? Is she learning from you?
Well, I will say that part of the magic of this particular sustainability community isn't just what we learn in class with you and from you, Josh. It's from all the connections that get seeded in those rooms. So I would say that overall, I think the community, like so many of my friends nowadays have come from this world. And what an honor, like what an honor. I was just meeting with Joe, who was helping me with like website design. And I was kind of like hemming and hawing, like, oh, it's so easy when you're your own boss to be like, oh, edit the podcast next week. But then people
Mhm.
start actually asking you, like, when's your podcast coming out? And I was talking with him about like, okay, I feel like no one's really breathing down my throat about these deadlines, but like, I guess people kind of are. He's like, well, yeah. And people aren't just waiting for your product to come out. People are waiting for you to ask them for help.
Mhm.
I thought, wow, like that's a cool community. That's a cool group of friends to be part of, where we are inspired by each other. We want to see the other success. We want to play a role in seeing the like the projects of others come to fruition. And I would say usually it's like just those social catch-up calls, like, hey, how's it going? What's up in your world? That end up being the most inspiring because you're most at ease, you're most just in a headspace where you're like happy to see a friend. And then next thing you know, your friend helped you like level up your website. Turns out you probably shouldn't have quite so many fonts.
Do you have any? I have a designer friend who, yeah, he loves all these fonts, and he's like, but very few, like, don't use all of them.
At a
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
And do you have any stories about when you contacted someone for help? When you, because I think I was, for so long, I felt like, all right, I got to get this thing working really well. Then I can show it to people.
Mm.
Whereas it works much more effectively if I share something undone and ask for advice or ask for help. Have you had specific examples of stories of that with someone where you like, can you help me?
Yeah. So, okay, in my online coursework, or in my online course, part of the content. Hey, buddy, here he comes, the hurricane.
Uh,
Part of the content is like a video that gets shown every class. Just one second. Okay, honey, thank you so much for letting me know. I'm still being interviewed. I'll tell you what, you can have one of those bars now. You waited so long. I'm so happy. Thank you for being so patient about that.
so
You
for
can have a
viewers,
bar.
this is working with Evelyn. And when people tell me, Josh, you don't know what it's like with kids, I'm like, well, I don't have kids of my own, but I see Evelyn making it work.
That's how I feel when Josh and I talk. I'm like, oh, I got to hang out in Manhattan. He'll be like, there is an old lady who's crossing the street who almost just got hit by a cop. Or like you'll hear someone panhandling. So fun. Yeah, cross-pollination of different cultures. Okay, so what were you talking about?
Stories of asking people for help.
Oh yeah. Okay, so in the online course, there is part of the itinerary. Oh, and you had asked about the itinerary of the retreats too, and I forgot to answer that. But part of the itinerary of the online course is that it's like the same agenda every time, and people like participants will go into breakout rooms to meet to like practice with a partner, but ultimately like the structure of every class is going to be the same, and that includes like a 12-minute video at the beginning that in my mind answers a bunch of the questions that Josh, that you and I would field again and again and again and again when we were doing the longer course. So my hope is that if people are hearing the same words 3 times, because it's a 3-series course, that the first time they'll be like, yeah, that makes sense, I'm ready. The second time they'll be like, oh, I didn't hear that the first time. And then third time they're like, I know this backwards and forwards. And there is data to support that 3 like does something special in neurologically speaking. That's why gambling often has 3 things. That's where the research came from. Okay, so in this video that I was putting together, I was like, it's gonna be boring if it's all my voice for all those 12 minutes. What I really need is like testimonials of people who have done, well, Josh, you use, the SPODIC method, who have done a SPODIC method commitment. I call it a PAC, personalized activating challenge. So people, it just makes, for me, like the lingo makes it easier to talk about. So I reached out to a bunch of friends and colleagues about like, hey, would you be willing to record a short, like 10-second video of yourself answering, like 4 10-second videos answering these questions? Like what was your original memory in nature? What were the emotions you felt? What was your PAC? What did you agree to do? And then actually, maybe that was it. Maybe it was like, what's your first name and where you're calling from? That was the 4. So I engaged a bunch of people to send these videos in, and they did. And then I realized, oh, there's no room in this 12-minute video for this particular like testimonial, but that's okay. Like I'll do something else for this series of testimonials. I'm going to make I'm going to make a video just of the testimonials that I am going to give to people before they show up to their first session. So that's going to be like one of the only prerequisites is like, come to the first session whenever you're ready, but you're not ready until you have watched this collection of like half a dozen people basically saying, that's going to be probably a 5-minute video all told, of like different people's voices and different, we all like, it's all different demographics. There's like black faces, white faces, brown faces, people talking in English, different accents, different, rural, urban, old, young. It's like pretty cool to hear the variety of ways that like this universal mechanism like lights people up. So yes, asking for help has been, plus like the whole nonprofit thing, like plus having a nonprofit means you're not just a sole proprietor. You can't just be like, I think this should be our motto or whatever. And when we were trying to figure out the mission, why do we exist? I had like all these words and, and I was like, yes, this is what we're here for. And I ran it by my board. Some of my board members are here now. So hi guys. And they made it so much better. They made the mission so much better. It was like unrecognizable from its original form. I was like, this is like what we really do. This is what we're here for. Hello. Well, here he is. I guess we were swimming or like playing in the sprinklers outside. Hello. Oh, you did find me.
Now there's a question in the chat from Beth, and I'm going to, in case she doesn't want to come off mute, in case she does want to come on, I'll talk slowly. But if she doesn't, then here she goes. Beth, do you want to give your question?
Sure. I just know that a lot of your energy you were talking about what's come from your relationships of the people that you've met in this community. And I know that you and Hayden brainstorming and coming and talking about meeting each other on your bicycles and all of that sort of morphed into some of what you're talking about. And I wonder if you could address a little bit about how that grew to be what it is how you've grown it to be the ideas and the 3 different components now.
Yeah, sure. So a little bit like much of that came from that like coach's question that was like, what's the opposite of the Sunday night ick? And in answering that question, like there was that dream that in part was like, well, part of me always wanted to be like a grown-up summer camp counselor. Like summer camp time is magic. If anyone went to summer camp, like residential summer camp as a kid, like 1 week of your life is embedded in your heart forever because it's just different. Time is just different. And like being in a different space, especially well, I'm running my retreats. It's like not in like the wilderness, but it's in rural, scenic Eastern Oregon. So, the retreat idea like really started rolling as like a sense of like, yeah, this feels like something I've been called to do for a long time, even before sustainability, even before I had something to have a summer camp about. I was like, man, there's so many social problems. I think really the only way to solve them is to like put ourselves in our own like unique community so we can like just have at it together, not necessarily isolated, but like, yeah, maybe a little isolated from all of the noise of what we're usually told. But the biking part of it, which ended up leading to the podcast, came from me posing the same question to Hayden in just, chatting with a colleague and a friend, like, Hayden, this coach asked me this really cool question. Like, what would your answer be? And he took some time to answer it. And he came back, he's like, I think if I could just do anything I really wanted and like somehow get paid for it, or like somehow money is not you can't in your mind answer that question and then say, but that would never be profitable. You just got to answer the question, and then the rest of the problems get solved or don't. But he said that he would bike around like all the time, year round or whatever, as much as he could, and use that biking as a mechanism, as like a megaphone for human powered adventures and the bliss and joy of living more sustainably. I was like, well, me too. That was kind of the second branch of my answer of like, what is the opposite of my Sunday night ick job? I guess we need a better word. Like dream job is one way to say it, but that doesn't quite capture it either. So when Hayden and I realized that we both separately shared this aligned dream of like, man, I would bike around all the time and use that biking as a way to to sing from the rooftops, the good word of living more sustainably. Then that is just kind of naturally rolled into like, okay, well, if we wanted to do that, what megaphone would we use? We're like, well, podcast is the easiest one. I already had a recording studio I had done some audio recording before when I had recorded my audiobook that I released as a podcast for free. So it like kind of happened organically each step. And every time I look too far into the future and think something feels impossible, I'm like, that's a tomorrow problem. I don't need to solve that problem today. It might not even ever come to fruition, that problem down the road. So keeping sort of the narrow focus of like, well, what's the problem that's right in front of me? What problem do I have to solve to get there? And am I going to quit or not quit? And the whole like, just don't quit like mentality has really served me well.
When you were talking about camp, that you were in a camp and now you're more than like a camp counselor, you're running a camp. And
right.
A lot of people talk about imposter syndrome. Do you ever feel like, who am I to do this? Do you ever feel like, or do you feel, I mean, I hear a lot of humility, but a lot of discovery. Do you feel like who am I to do this? Or maybe if I go too far, maybe it's worked so far, but it might fail if I take the next step. Do you feel imposter syndrome?
Well, like, it's funny actually, when I was listening to Emily's like, check out my project, and she talked about all the research she did before she jumped into stuff. I was like, I've never done that research. That's not my thing. Like, meh, I don't care. Like, I know it's true. I already know like there's bad stuff. Like the way humans are acting is bad. Got it. I don't have to know the details of like PFAS or whatever. Fine. Don't put plastic in the ocean. Which was actually helpful because I was like, oh, there's no wrong way to get there. Like Emily is her own person born with her beautiful brain and capabilities. And she got to where she is based on being in the right place at the right time for her. So I would say that the imposter syndrome, or like thinking like, who am I to do this? That maybe was like true a little earlier on, like maybe when I was still just working with you, Josh, or maybe starting to lead workshops with Spodek Academy. I was like, me? Are you sure? But the more I hear from my own community how they see me. Like there are people I don't know, people who I've never met, who friends will mention me to them and they're like, oh, I know her. I see her on her bike all the time. Like I'm known now as the person who's on my bike all the time. And I've been given enough positive feedback from like my group, my people. Like for example, a woman who serves on the board of Right Track Resource Center with me, which is our local homeless shelter, but also like housing resource, which is why our name isn't just about just the shelter. Anyway, so she was like, you know, Evelyn, when I was asking her for advice, actually, based on like a leadership exercise that we were assigned for a leadership class, but
I know that. Yeah.
I asked her for advice and she goes, you know, don't be afraid to really lead with the fact that she probably didn't say walking the walk, but that was the message, was like, don't be afraid to talk about how you are living consistently with the thing. You're living, not inconsistent, you're living in alignment with the thing you're trying to teach. And I was like, okay, that's a helpful reminder, because it's sometimes hard to see how far you've come or how extreme you look to someone else, or how quickly they go from like, I'm just like you. And then you're like, I don't have a fridge. And they're like, you're crazy and extreme. Like, well, which one is it? So I think by this point, I recognize like, oh my God, the experts in sustainability, like, whew, their hearts are in the right place. But wow, by the time Robert Downey Jr., by the time I'm on his radar, I feel like I already know that I have stuff to teach. I already know that I'm coming at it from a unique point of view. And that's in large part, I mean, that's thanks to you, Josh, who you were willing to do that work of like, wait a second, maybe these assumptions that we're all making, these like assumptions we don't even question, we don't even recognize them as assumptions, they're just so part of the soup we're swimming in, maybe we actually could question them. So your willingness to do that has then like spread out to the people who have been part of your universe and who have like really taken it to heart. Not everybody kind of swallows the pill, but I would say that at this point I'm confident enough, even though part of me is still like, I'm just like a lady. I'm just a lady with kids. I'm kind of like, yeah, but so are we all. So is everybody who's done anything. Not a lady, but we're all just people.
Let's go the other way. Instead of feeling, if there might have been feelings of inadequacy, do you see yourself in the history books in the future? Do you see yourself as like, Evelyn Wallace is the one, it all started with her. No one had this idea until she did. Now it's everyone does it. Or do you see that? Or is that too, do you indulge in that?
Not, I mean, like history books, not exactly, but I do, for whatever reason, I have like these premonitions of like being, Hollywood feels like the place, LA feels like very, very much home to me. Los Angeles, I didn't see that coming. That was like a surprise in 2018 or something. Like, what? I love this city. City of Angels is right. So there's some part of me that like feels resonant with like, I am going to be in rooms with like celebrities. I can feel it. And even if that doesn't happen, I mean, I'm not trying to validate my work. Like, oh, once I'm in rooms with celebrities, then I will know I've made it. It's not that. It's like, I can feel that what I have to offer, and being born the way I was born, like kind of expressive and like performative, I guess. Not performative in that it's inconsistent. There's not like a different inside than outside. I'm just saying like performance wise, I'm pretty comfortable in the performance space. I see that there's enough people in that celebrity realm who are trying to walk the walk. Like, yeah, Robert Downey Jr.'s Cool Foods, where like there's one sentence in the whole book of like, well, we're not going to look at packaging or transportation because those are externalities. I'm like, hold the press. Like, we need to talk, Robert. I can imagine that at some point in the natural progression of this work, I will find my way into the rooms of people who are like thirsty to be the good guys in this battle for human survival.
Now, I want to keep going. We are coming up on the hour, and I want to make sure that are there things I didn't think to ask that you wanted, that I should have asked about?
Okay, there are two things I wanted to make sure to say. One is if anybody likes to edit podcasts, let me know, because man, I would love to outsource that. Also, maybe this is just my own like journey into like, okay, even when you create your own dream job, there's still going to be parts of it that you claw against. I also, our website is still like a work in progress. And I think part of what would make its like front page really compelling is if I had a bunch of pictures of people actually living that bliss of living more sustainably, like just big photos of like, you know, photos can't lie. Okay, they can. Okay, they can. But you know what I'm saying. So if anyone listening has pictures of themselves doing a PAC, personalized activating challenge, or living more sustainably and like having fun doing it, I would be so, so grateful if you could send me those pictures if you're willing to be featured front and center, or at least on like a sliding, you know, photo album on my website. I think a picture speaks 1,000 words. You can find me at circle-game.org, and the contact sheet there goes straight to my email, so you don't have to remember any email. But yeah, if you're willing to send some pictures, I would be very grateful.
So that's a live. Earlier, I asked about, do you have examples of asking for help? And there was one.
Oh yeah, help.
And anything else about your experiences or things to share there? And also, there's a question they always ask me, and take it, you don't have to, because I get annoyed by it, but do you have any advice for people who might want to follow in your footsteps, or not maybe do for themselves in their lives, for themselves, what works for them? Any advice there?
As far as living more sustainably, or as far as like starting their own project?
I'm thinking starting their own project.
Yeah, so my life changed in 2016 when I watched a friend die, and you know, we we are presented with moments in life that are just like uncompromising. And for me, that like a lot of nonsense about how the world works or what I thought was important, just like there wasn't any room for that anymore. It just kind of crumbled away. So since then, I've really been on this path of like every choice I make, I try to ask, is what I'm doing now consistent with the truth I saw in death, in like looking at death and like the inevitable end for all of us? This like I don't see it as morbid anymore. I just see it as like something like you should probably come to peace with it because it's 100% guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like betting, you know, like you can't bet against it. So I guess I would say that for people starting out who feel like a call in their heart to do a thing, check it against that part of you that's like that knows how to ask what's real and what is just like for other people, like what's kind of throwaway fluff. Because I think we are all very skilled at something. We were all born to give. We're all born to sing whatever song we have in our hearts. So if you can get over however slowly it needs to happen, like get over that sort of fear-based thinking of like, I have to do this in the world because this is how the world works. Like, well, is it though? Or is that just is that just like a human overlay that we kind of pretend is how the world works? But yeah, but really like what's really stopping you? I guess that's like a more spiritual, like abstract answer to the advice question, but still sticking with it.
Well, I think it's worth it. It might be worth it to say it again that, I mean, what I took away, I don't think I got all of what you said, and I think I want to get it again. Can you say again? It's because if I'm thinking about saying back to you what I heard, but I think it's going to sound trite of like, you know, if you're scared of it, if you want to do something and you're scared of doing it, check in your heart. Is this fear real? What do you really want to do? Did I get it right?
Yeah. I mean, because like I can't tell you what's in your heart. Only you know that. Stephen Pressfield talks about this too, like in War of Art, is like we're all born to do something, but like but often the thing we were born to do like is this sort of parallel unlived life because we give in to this resistance or like, you know, sort of what we've been taught is like what we're supposed to do. And sometimes what the world kind of tells us to do is in alignment with what we feel called to do. And like, hallelujah, lucky you. But I feel like we all know somewhere, if we're willing to get quiet and really listen, like what what would I be doing if I could be doing anything? What is the opposite? I guess I encourage, okay, here's my advice. I encourage you to do your own test of like, what's the opposite of your Sunday night ick? And then what's stopping you from creating that dream job yourself?
Thank you for saying it again. And it looks like Eugene might have a question. Can you come off mute?
No, I actually don't have a question. There was a request on the screen that said like the host has asked you to turn on your video. So I turned on the video, but I just said okay to that. But no, I didn't have a specific question.
Okay, then, well, glad to see you. And now everyone got to see Eugene, who perhaps will be in future. Check out my project.
Maybe
Podcast.
someday.
Eugene says it takes him only 2 hours. I asked him, okay, that was talking about asking for help. Now that I'm thinking about it, I asked Eugene once, I'm like, how do you get over podcast editing? He's like, takes me 2 hours. I was like, what? I spent that long avoiding it. I've spent multiple 2-hour chunks avoiding it.
I know that feeling.
What is this magic? And then Jan, who also has a podcast, he's like, Evelyn, I'm going to do a terrible Jan impression. He's like, Evelyn, you do not have to take out all the uhs and ums. It is natural. People like it. I don't know. He's like part German in my bad impression of him. But I was like, oh, that's a good point. I don't have to be a perfectionist of, I don't know. I also can, okay, editing your own podcast, fun fact, you guys, will help you speak better in the future because wow, that's a lot of ums and likes. And I probably actually broke all the rules for myself, but like, whew, boy, do I talk a lot when I have to listen to myself in the editorial phase. Stop talking, Evelyn, sometimes.
Well, I'll cut you off this time to save you from that this time, because we're at the hour, and I don't want to go too much over because I want to respect the future listeners or viewers. Anything else to add before we wrap up?
Thanks for doing what you do, Josh. Thanks for having lived like 1,000 weirdo lives before you came to this, so that we really can see there's no wrong way to do it. Thanks for spearheading this movement so that the rest of us can. It's like you prepped the garden. You prep the soil, and then we all get to plant our own seeds and bloom in the microclimates we're planted.
I hope everyone else feels as good as I do right now.
Oh, my phone was silenced.
Evelyn Wallace, thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, guys, for being here.